Are you looking to play some basic blues solos? Well then stay tuned while I cover some easy licks to get you started. I'm going to be referencing a previous video we did where we discussed what a 12-bar blues form is and some variations too, so if that would be helpful to you, check that out. Before we move on, the gear that I'm featuring in this video is a Fender Standard Stratocaster as well as a Fender ToneMaster 59 Bassman amp. These are all available at zZounds, and we have flexible payment plan options for them as well. All right, so before we get to the licks themselves, let's check out the scale that I'll be using. First one is going to be the minor pentatonic scale, so I'll run it up and down so you can see what the pattern looks like. And then descending. The next scale I'll use is the major pentatonic scale. So let me play that one up and down for you so you see what it looks like. And then descending. So for the first lick, I'm going to be using the minor pentatonic scale, that first one I played. And this is going to just outline some of the basic shapes that you'll see quite often in blues licks. So check it out. For the first part, I'm going to use a slide and then a slide at the end. And I'll explain everything afterwards, but here's the lick. And so let's break down that lick really quick. Once again, this is going to be the G minor pentatonic scale, so that shape from the 3rd fret. And I'm starting with a slide from the 3rd fret up to the 5th. So once I'm there, I'm just going to take my index finger and actually get ready to bar it or kind of flatten it across the top 3 strings. So when you do that, you can individually hit the first note, roll your finger to the next string and hit the next note, and then roll your finger again to the top string and get that note. So it'll look like this. That way you could separate all the notes so they don't all bleed together. That does sound cool if you want them all to bleed together, but it also sounds nice if you roll your finger as you go up, and then you could separate the notes. Finally, the last part of the lick is you want to grab that pinky note at the 6th fret on the 2nd string, and slide that one up to the 8th fret, and that's going to be the final note, that final G note that we'll resolve on. So here's the lick all together. And there it is. You might notice me doing some vibrato too. I'm just actually kind of shaking that last note to give it some extra texture and vocal quality. So once again, here's the lick all together. So that last lick was a minor pentatonic. Let's talk about the major pentatonic version of that exact same lick. So I'm going to change one basic note. That's going to give us a different major blues flavor. So check it out. First note, I'm going to start at the G, again at the 5th fret. Now this time I'm going to do a hammer-on. So I'm going to start at the 3rd fret, and I'm going to hammer on to the 4th fret on that very same string. And then the rest of the lick is exactly the same as it was in the previous lick. So index finger up here, slide with the pinky to the 8th fret. So here's the lick all together. And a little slower. And then full speed there. So now that you guys know the major pentatonic version of that lick, let's talk about a one-note variation that really sounds awesome. I use this lick constantly still because it's an homage to an old jazz phrase. Blues musicians love this one too. So we're going to start the entire lick the same way as before. 5th fret start, hammer on from 3rd to the 4th fret. Then we're going to go to the 3rd fret on the next string. But this time, we're going to go to the 5th fret on that same string with our ring finger, so 3, 5. And then we're going to end the lick back on the root up here at the 3rd fret on the 1st string, G. So check it out. Here's the lick all together. And then with a little more speed there. So you can kind of hear how familiar that lick is, right? Once again, even faster there. So here's a cool minor pentatonic lick that has a small bend. I'll play it first, and then I'll describe how to play it. All right, so what's going on in that lick? I start at the 3rd fret on the 2nd string, right here. Now, that cool little dissonant part you heard is going to be played by putting your pinky on the 6th fret up here, and then putting your ring finger on the 5th fret on the string right below that. So it'll look like that. Now, to give it some extra tension, what I was doing was bending with my ring finger up slightly, so pushing that string up a teensy bit. That's going to give it a lot more tension. Moving on from there, the next part of the lick is pretty simple. You just take your index finger and bar it over the 3rd fret on the 2nd string and the 3rd fret on the 1st string. So just like this. Now, the final part of the lick is my favorite part. We're going to do a small slur. So go to your 6th fret on the 3rd string with your ring finger. And I want you to quickly hit it and slide down to the 5th fret, 1 fret below that, like this. And it sounds really cool if you can get that very quickly, like this. So it's almost like that first note isn't heard. Then the rest of the lick is just the 3rd fret, and only the 5th fret on the 4th string. And that's our whole lick. So let me play it once for you. So this next lick works really well over that minor blues progression, especially if you have that kind of 6/8 feel I was talking about, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's going to be a great application for this next lick. So let's hear it. So let's talk about that lick. Obviously, you might have noticed those bends at the beginning, which are awesome. So classic blues is going to do a whole step bend from this 5th fret note, and that's on the 3rd string. So I'm going to bend it up until it's a whole step higher than that note. So you might be wondering, well, how do I know if it's in tune? It doesn't sound right. One quick way to test it is to hit your first note, go up 2 frets to the 7th fret and hit that note. You want to bend that note until it sounds exactly like that 7th fret. So go down to the 5th fret, hit it, check your note, the 7th fret, and then go back and try to bend it until it sounds like that note. And that's how you know your whole step bend is in tune. After that, I want you to bend it once and then do that technique we did before where I barred the index finger and rolled it as I went up from the 3rd fret to the 3rd fret. And so it'll sound like this. And then you're just going to do that whole sequence again. And with this one, it sounds cool if you let the notes bleed together like this. Give it some more grit. So don't be too worried about separating the notes like we did on that other lick. So check it out. Now, the next part of the lick is going to be another bend. This time we're going to go to the 5th fret on the 1st string right here. What you want to do is a half step bend this time. So this time you're going to want to bend this note until it sounds like the fret above it. So play this note, bend it until it sounds like this note. And then that's it. Then you know your half step bend is in tune. So bend it, release it, go to the 5th fret again, then go to the 3rd fret. Now the last part of the lick, just for extra style points, is a slide. I'm going to slide from the 3rd fret down here with my ring finger, so I end up at the 5th fret with my ring finger. And then we're going to end our lick back on the G note up here at the 3rd fret. So the second part of the phrase is, and then all together with the bends. So this next lick is going to be a minor blues turnaround lick, which will work perfect over a minor blues turnaround that we covered in the last video. For reference, the turnaround chords I am referring to are an E flat 9 chord, a D9 chord, and then the G minor 7. And so, let's hear the lick. All right, one more time. So as you can see, it's super simple, but it highlights the chords in a really musical way. So it works perfectly with it. Let's talk about it. First part is the 6th fret on the 3rd string, and I'm going to play that with my middle finger, like this. To do that, I'm going to start at the 5th fret, however, though, and slide into it from the fret below, like this. Now, I'm going to grab the 6th fret also on the 1st string, like this, with my ring finger. And to make it sound extra bluesy, I'm going to hold both of those at the same time so that the notes bleed into each other, like this. You want to keep both fingers pressed down. So once again, slide into it, and then play this part. We're going to essentially do the same thing 1 fret lower. I'm going to slide from the 3rd fret to the 5th fret this time, a little longer slide. And then do the same thing as before. Ring finger on the 5th fret, hold the notes down together. And then I'm going to end the lick on our G note and the 3rd fret on the 1st string. So here's it all together. For the last lick, it's going to be a major pentatonic style lick, and it has a couple chords in there to give it some textures. So here's the lick. And once again, that's the lick again. So let's break that lick down. Starts with a G note on the 5th fret right here, my ring finger. For the next part, I'm going to do a little chord here, which is the 3rd fret and the 3rd fret on the strings above it with my index finger. Now, to give it extra flavor though, I'm going to do a hammer on from the 3rd fret to the 4th fret on the G string here. So that's how that sounds. It's a really cool mix of like a minor and then a major chord. To do the next part, I'm going to take my ring finger and bar on the 5th fret on both strings like this. So all together, it's... And we're going to want to go back to that first little chord that I did, the 3rd fret, hammer onto the 4th. And then I'm going to return back to the first note I did to round that first part of the lick out. Now, to do the next part of the lick, I am going to go up to the 5th fret right here and bar that with my index finger this time. That first part. Now, that's a little trickier, but we're going to go to this chord next. And as you saw me do right there, I'm going to do my ring finger on the 7th fret and my middle finger on the 6th fret is a little chord right there. So, and then once again, slide up into the 5th fret again. So, and finally our last note, I'm just going to hit that note that you're already barring with your index finger on the 5th fret here. So, all right, so far we have. And then for the last part, I'm going to return to the first note we did in the lick, the 5th fret down here, and then do that little hammer-on chord again. And then that's the whole lick. So I know this one's a lot more complicated than the others, but I'll play it one more time and follow along with the tabs that we have on screen. Now that you know these licks, let's use them. I'm going to play a minor blues progression and improvise using 3 or 4 of the licks as we learned them. There might be some variation because I am improvising, but you'll be able to see the exact application of the licks. Thanks so much for watching our guide on how to get started soloing over the blues. All the gear in this video is available at zZounds, and we have flexible payment plan options for them as well. Please like and subscribe to our channel, and stay tuned for more content in the future.